All right. Roy, are we on?
We are on. We are ready to go.
I couldn't tell. Well, welcome, our friends on the call, whether you're on LinkedIn, on Instagram, wherever you might be. So it's a pleasure to have these discussions with you. Roy, you know that next year, the 3rd of January, we're going to hit the ground running with our professional program leader certification. And there's a lot that we have to talk about. And one of the topics we have to discuss is the world of agile. And I think am I moving in slow motion, Roy,
You're
right now?
lagging a little bit. Yes, you are, Phil. I was
Oh
just about
dear.
to send you a quick chat message.
I am lagging pretty bad.
Yeah,
But beyond the lagging, let's talk about what we are thinking of presenting to our friends. A lot of what we're presenting in this confines, Roy, has to do with agile thinking. And I thought, how best to begin our discussion today than with some discussion about the Agile Manifesto values and principles?
absolutely, absolutely. Because I think it's really interesting to kind of compare how the manifesto maybe needs to evolve a little bit, and for many reasons, AI being one of them. Right? I think it's worth digging into it. What are your thoughts, Phil?
I think so too, Roy. Why don't we jump straight into it? Let's talk about this concept, Agile Reframed. And in Agile Reframed, we're going to be looking at the Agile Manifesto through a different lens for the AI era. I know the purists are going to be mad that we're saying Agile needs a rebirth in terms of how we juxtapose artificial intelligence and its crazy hyper iterative nature
Hmm.
with agility. You talk about agility, well, AI can come right alongside you and it can either make you a lot more agile in your thinking and actions, or you could get stuck in bad habits and old ways and the stuck in a muddiness of the awesome 2001 document.
Hmm.
So, the concept, Roy, Agile didn't become relevant because of Scrum boards. A lot of people think it did.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that Jira is the reason why Agile exists.
It is so not. The tooling conversation, right?
It is so not a tooling conversation, but it's ironic because a lot of the people we would have thought would know this, they don't. They think Jira has become the driving force.
It is, and it's unfortunate. And Phil, going back to your some of your earlier comments there, I'm sure we've all heard "Agile is dead" on the internet, right? We hear that
Mhm.
all over the place, and I would obviously that's an alarmist kind of perspective. I wouldn't say that it's dead, but I would say it's tired, right? It's been misused, it's been abused. There have been a
Abused.
lot of yeah, it's been abused like crazy. There have been a lot of transformation failures out there because it's not that necessarily that Agile failed, but the organization failed to change with it. So there's lots of reasons that happen, and rather than getting into that, I think it's worth revisiting some of those things. And the tooling conversation is one of them. A lot
Yeah.
of organizations viewed the tool is the center of the world, which goes against the manifesto. Is
Hmm.
literally stated in the manifesto. It's not about the tools. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, right. So we need to get back to the roots. Let's get back to
Get
what
back to
Agile
the
is.
roots. Get back to the roots. And, Agile became relevant because the world stopped behaving predictably.
Absolutely, and absolutely correct, right? Predictability started going away because technology was evolving so fast. People were evolving. Social media, there's
Yeah.
internet. All of these things happened, to make it so everything is so fast. Access to so much information, and now it's evolving even faster because we've got this new thing that's been out, new like in the past few years anyway.
Yep.
AI, right?
This new
AI is
thing.
completely changing this, right?
Absolutely, Roy. So, without much ado, let's jump in to a discussion about the awesome, we love it, okay, the Agile Manifesto, but it does have to be looked at differently. And also the world of the PMBOK guide, it also has to be looked at very differently. But we'll tackle that one after this.
Yeah.
Let's
Exactly.
deal with
One
the
at a time.
the more,
Let's
yeah,
conquer the world one step at a time, right?
one at a time, absolutely. So, Roy, the very first agile value, it states individuals and interactions over processes and tools.
Yeah.
But in this new age, we don't just want to say over processes and tools. It's very simplistic to look at it that
It is.
way.
Mhm.
But we need to understand that in the world of AI, we have augmented humans. And
We sure
augmented
do.
humans just means you are adding on the ability to hyper iterate. But AI is a multiplier. It's not
Mhm.
your decision maker. Is that a right way to think of it, Roy? Because I know a lot of people, they run to their little GPTs and ask it to make decisions.
Terrible
It
idea.
asks them to create principles and ideas. And that's not how to use the tool, is it, Roy?
Not at all. AI is a thinking partner, but you never outsource decision making to a tool, to a technology. That's a terrible, terrible idea. AI is wrong a significant percentage of the time. And so, why would you possibly trust it to make decisions in a human
Mm,
world? It's when bad things are going to happen. So, you just don't do that. However, as long as you're keeping the human is in the loop and part of the process to ultimately make the decisions, what you're essentially doing is, as you said, augmenting the humans. You're making them faster. You're making them, better thinking partners. You can produce value
mm,
faster. It is as it says here, a force multiplier. You'll get a lot more
yeah.
work done, a lot more decisions done faster, as long as you're treating it with respect and you are the person
Mm,
doing that decisioning. So here's one of those cases where the tool is actually really improving the human. So
yeah.
yeah, we don't want to throw out the tools necessarily. We
Hmm.
want to make sure that they are partnering now. So it's a kind of a
Absolutely.
different perspective. It's no
Yeah.
longer the tool doing the job; it's partnering with the tool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, as opposed to looking at AI as an opposing force, get it on your side. We
Yeah.
talk about agents in this day and age. Hopefully, a lot of our friends know about agents. So, we're
Mhm.
using it as an agent to help us go through our own decision making process. But the decision making process does not exclude us. In fact, we are at the helm, the driver's seat of those
Absolutely correct.
processes.
And never relinquish control. Right.
Never relinquish. I love that, Roy. That should be a rule. Never
Yes.
relinquish control. It's an overarching mindset.
100%.
Definitely. All right, let's talk about the next one. Working product. You and I like using the word product as opposed to software.
Yeah, and Phil, we've talked about this a lot. This is one of the things that I think the Agile Manifesto and the Agile community in general really got wrong. It's so focused on software, and yeah, we get it. That's where it came from, and there was a reason for it to be about that. But Agile's in every single industry. It's everywhere. So stop the software focus, stop the technology focus, the tech focus, and let's just focus on getting work done. Right? It's about the work,
Mm,
it's the services, the products we're producing, not just about software. Right?
absolutely. And it's so easy to churn out documentation these days, which is why we
Yeah.
absolutely need to think about this a lot more. You can let AI make a first pass at documents, but
Exactly.
docs are cheap,
Yeah.
so it
And
has to be value.
absolutely, and I would actually say that in an AI world, documentation has now actually become more valuable than it was in the past.
Mm,
Because by building the right documentation, it's not just like documenting everything that's happening. It's building the right documentation is useful for your AI interactions. So
yes.
documenting things like your standards, your
Mm.
architectural artifacts, all of these, your organizational context, your values, your strategy, putting that in reasonable levels of documentation and allowing your AI to have access to that is going to make the responses so much better. Right. So documentation is actually becoming even more important than it was before. Right.
So well said, Roy. In fact, the documentation, we could look at that as a lifeblood for
100%.
AI's rationalization and thinking, like data.
Yes.
That's the data
It is
that AI
data.
needs to run
Yes.
off. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's move on to number three, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So
Yeah.
instead of looking at your customer as someone who you need to bargain hard with, we should
Mhm.
look at our customers as our learning partners. We're all on this journey together, right?
Yeah, it's part of your feedback loop, right? You're learning
Mm.
together and let's tag AI into this conversation as well. So you're never going to get a customer where you say, "Well, the AI said do this." And they'll go, "Awesome. Well, AI says it's the right thing to do, so let's go that direction." So there again is where the human, that interaction needs to persist. You've got to have that human interaction. But there's no reason why you can't use this partner, this technology partner to help you with research. Have it help you understand what some of your customer problems are. What are people saying on the internet? What's customer sentiment? What is the market
Mm,
saying about your customers and their products and services, so that you can have a much
mm.
deeper understanding of where they are. Now, in the past, that would have taken you days or weeks to build all that. Now you can do it in minutes, right? It's so fast to
Minute.
get information. So use it as your
Absolutely.
research partner, right?
Yes, Roy. And I mean, gone are the days when we would say, well, we needed a couple of months to get your prototype. Now you can get prototype in a few seconds, right?
Yeah,
Just
exactly. You can do it live, right? You can do it
live.
live with them on the phone with you. How about this? What do you think? Boom, right? There's your prototype.
Isn't it crazy? And let's not even look too far, Roy, because you and I, we do a lot of this training and coaching. And in one of your experiences, you were able to create case studies on the fly as a result of AI being right there, right?
Exactly. In the past, so I do a lot of training, as you do as well. Obviously, we do a lot of training. And in the past, we would typically include some case study that would be the same case study we use over and over again. Because guess what? It took a lot of time to build those case studies. So there was an economic reason to have that consistency. Well, today those economics are gone, right? So now what I do is, and this is a real world story. I was teaching a class, and I was working with a training partner. I said, look, let's not use the traditional case study you've got in your materials. Let's come up with one on the fly. Let's let the class come up with one. And we were teaching the class, okay, folks, we're going to do this. And we got in and we opened up Chat GPT and we went through a few iterations. And right there, within minutes, we came up with a case study that was relative to that audience on the spot. And it just took minutes to do there. And it gave me all the information, built it out, and it actually turned out to be something they were currently working on, which was really kind of interesting. So they were really excited about it. They were a little concerned that the internet had access to that, right? Because guess what? If you're not careful, bad stuff happens, right? They let out some
Absolutely.
public information, or private information not have been public.
Yeah.
But the key there is it's changed the dynamics. You don't need to do these repeatable things because you can change on the fly so much faster, right? Right there on the spot, rather than
Right there.
thinking about it and making it canned. You don't have to do that anymore, right?
Absolutely. And I was just sharing my own experience with you, Roy, a few
Please
moments
do.
ago, how I had this client and said, okay, I need this in Spanish. Yeah, I know you've got this app developed in English.
Yeah.
And within seconds, minutes at most, the
Mhm.
tool was able to change around an entire app and give you Portuguese, Brazilian, and Spanish and French,
Yep.
and you could flip back and forth. This would have taken a number of hours for a human developer to do.
Plus the
So as a
translation service you would have had to pay.
exactly, the translation services. So this is an example of customer collaboration. As opposed to you spinning wheels, AI helps you take what is near and dear to the customer and make it happen just in a
Exactly.
blink of an eye, which is truly invaluable. And Roy, what about responding to change? I mean, it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to pivot. Your firm is called Pivot Agility. So
Pivot
that pivot
agility.
mindedness, yeah, that agile mindedness to pivot,
Yeah.
AI just helps you amplify that. But you got to have a willing human, right?
A willing human, and I'd also say a willing system, meaning your organization needs to be prepared to pivot so much faster. Right. So think about it in your traditional organizations, where things were defined for, or your policies and governance were defined for predictability, where work has to be sequenced for humans. There has to be authority, where your decisions go up, you wait for steering committees and decision authority. All these kinds of things happen. If you do that today and try to make AI work in those kinds of environments, basically all you're doing is making coming to a decision faster, but still being limited by all those internal systems that are going to slow you down. Now, when you're dealing with humans, that slowdown might have been necessary. Now you're slowing yourself down and you're limiting your ability to respond to change. So it's not only just us internally, our teams making these decisions and
Mm,
working faster. We also have to look at the organization as a whole. Can the organization absorb the speed of this change? And
mm.
most organizations are not designed to absorb it. That's a real problem, right?
They need a total overhaul. Speaking of overhaul, Roy, we got a really interesting chat from one of our
I
friends,
just saw that. Yeah,
Self
it's
Made
great.
Conscious. Yeah, so Roy, we've been talking about a number of concepts in Agile. But one of the biggest things that would help someone who wants to move from being, because you know, Roy, you were in this world. Why don't you
Oh,
answer
yeah.
our friend here? Give give
Yeah,
give
so
our friend
I
some
was
two
the
cents.
software engineer for a long, long time. Okay, longer than I really care to admit. But I was doing it for a long time, so I'm very technical background. And so the main thing is that if you keep the mindset that you had as you're doing technical work and you try to bring that into your managerial work, then you're likely going to have some pretty painful failures. And some of those failures are not bad failures. You need to learn, and having failures it can be a very positive thing. But we'd like to have you avoid some of them, some of the unnecessary failures. So one of the things that this program is going to help you with is help you think in different ways. Think a little bit less structured, a little bit less, the logistics of doing things. And coming from a technical background, it's very much about sequencing and thinking about things in a very logical order. Now, it doesn't always work like that. To be adaptable, sometimes you got to take risks. You got to, think outside of the logistics and the sequencing and, dependencies. And there's more to it than just that, right? You have to think in a very adaptive mindset, right? So this program is designed to help you think. It's going to make you uncomfortable, right?
Mm.
It's definitely going to make you uncomfortable, which is helpful, but it's going to help you think in a different way, change some of those thought patterns. So you're seeing things more as a system. You're seeing how your decision making and your adaptability is going to help, implement those systems. So this is a good program to help you think in a very different way. Phil, what are your reflections on that?
Absolutely, Roy. So, from someone from a very heavily regulated, very heavily process driven industry like
Yeah,
aerospace, worked at the likes of Honeywell and Motorola and American, I
yeah,
can tell you that in order for you to get into a managerial position, your thinking has to change from being more tactical to being even more strategic. And you know, Roy, when we talk about managerial, there are different levels. Even at the managerial level, you could still choose to have warped
hmm,
anti agile thinking, or you
yeah,
could choose to have leadership oriented thinking.
yes,
And you know, the great John Maxwell, he says everything rises and falls on leadership. So
hmm,
in this program, we're going to teach you how to be a real success in whatever role you're in, whether you're director level, whether you're VP level, whether you are any level you can think of, manager level, because it
hmm,
all rises and falls on leadership. And at the organizational level, part of leadership is strategy. And strategic thinking is not
it's
often taught
different.
in, yeah, it's different, isn't it, Roy? It's
Yeah,
not taught in agile, in a lot of the agile courses. It's not taught in a lot of the program and project management courses.
yeah,
You're still thinking tactically, but we need you to think even more elevated, like Roy said, systemically, holistically. So instead of thinking about projects, and
yeah,
programs and even products, you're thinking more holistically about value. You want to talk about that, Roy, about the value mindedness that this
yeah.
program is going to open people to?
Absolutely. So you've probably seen it on the internet, especially in the agile communities. There's a lot of conversation about value oriented thinking, value delivery, that sort of thing. Now, and it's a little bit overused sometimes, right? But it's actually at the core of where most organizations should be. Most organizations are focusing so much on delivering a project, scope, schedule, budget. They're focused on those three triple constraints. And while they're still important, right, and we don't forget those. We still have those in the back of our minds. What's really more important is that you're delivering value to those people that want that value, right? They're your customers. That could be any number of people. So it's really focusing on what is the right thing to deliver, what is the right thing to work on now, what is the right thing, what's the wrong thing to work on. Things that we could say, that's not going to help us. That's not the right direction for us to go. So let's either not do it at all, or maybe don't do it now, and we'll delay that decision for later when we have more information. So that value thinking is very different from the more traditional project oriented. I've got an idea, build a project around it, build a team, but you must deliver all this scope, off you go, without fully thinking through, is it the right thing? Is it the right thing now? Is it really going to get the response that we're looking for? What results are we looking for? What the outcome we're trying to achieve?
Mm,
The value thinking is very different, right? And this is going to help you with that.
very different. Thank you, Roy. And actually, I look at this as a pathway for those who
Yeah.
are keen on elevating their careers. If you're looking to go from projects or from being an engineer into more managerial, as you put it,
Yeah.
so that you can actually lead. The word management is often misconstrued with leadership. There's a big difference.
Big difference.
Management, let me take the words of Steve Jobs, management is making people do what you think they should do or what you want them to do. But
Mhm.
leadership is helping people to do, to see the possibilities
Yeah.
of what they never even thought they could do. Like you help people to blow their own minds. That's
Mhm.
what leadership is about. It's an enabler force. And unfortunately, Roy, let's be honest, a lot of managers, they don't have the leadership gene because
Yeah.
it becomes more prescriptive and carrot and sticks. But in this program,
Mhm.
by the time you go through this residency with us, your mindset, your language, your posture, your confidence is going to so radically shift that you will be set to continuously evolve. It's kind of like giving people an elixir, Roy, for constant evolution, so that even if you wanted to go all the way to the top, to the CEO level in a firm, we're going to show you how you need to be thinking as opposed to thinking tactically, project
Mhm.
level, program level. We're going to get you to be thinking more portfolio and executive oriented. So there's a lot you're going to learn. There's so many nooks and crannies. We have PMIs. Let's not forget, right? We don't want to
Bring it
discredit the
into the
great
mix.
work that our colleagues
Yeah.
have done, right, Roy? There's some
Absolutely.
great stuff in these books, but it's making it more pragmatic so that
Mhm.
you can speak the language. Roy, you want to talk about the language that this is going to help people to absorb and be able to
Absolutely.
practicalize in the boardrooms?
So not only are there different thought patterns that we need to have you think about, thinking about things in different ways. Obviously, there's a whole vocabulary, right? So there's we talk about things in different ways. There are different words for it. You're going to learn things like value streams. You're going to learn about OKRs and the metrics that you might be able to use to help measure all this stuff. You'll understand the difference between traditional portfolio and more of a lean portfolio. You'll talk about roadmaps and how they differ from Gantt charts and these kinds of things. So we'll help you understand the language that you are going to need to know in order to move into these higher level positions. And also, if you're looking at strategy, what does it mean? What is strategy? What's a product? Right? These are kinds of the discussions that we need to go through. Right? So there's whole vocabulary, different way of thinking. That's going to help you get to that path that it's not just the next job we want you to get. It's
Mm,
jobs after as well. Right?
absolutely. This, honestly, this is going to help set many of you folks up for life. Like honestly, when we tell you you haven't been in an environment like this, do understand that this is going to set you up for life. If you want to get more about this, go to programleadershipinstitute.com and go onto the curriculum. There's so much that we, could keep telling you you will get from the program, but hopefully by the time you go to the website and you take a look at the depth, right? Because we're going into programs, we're going into the world of PMI when it comes to programs and portfolios, but we're also going into an unexplored track, which
Mhm.
is the Agile program leadership, which is based on many, many, many years of doing this as Roy has delivered this to top Fortune 500 organizations over and over again. You're going to be getting into the world of what I call the three P's in Agile: program, portfolio, projects. You could put in products, but it's through an Agile lens. And there's no literature about this out there. This is based on Roy's um, empirical information. Right, Roy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important too, Phil, as you were talking about, we're not going to disregard the traditional approaches as well. It's
Mhm.
extremely important for
Yep.
you to not just understand where the world is moving to, but also where they are today, right? Let's
Mm.
understand traditional approaches. We're not going to throw all that stuff out, right?
Yeah.
We're going to keep that. It doesn't all go away. Projects aren't necessarily going away. Project
Mhm.
thinking might modify. It's going to evolve.
Yeah.
But these things, you need to have a good understanding of where we are today, what the value is in that, because there is value in those traditional approaches as well,
Yeah.
but also give you that lens where you
Mm.
can look at things from a more adaptive mindset so you can see where the world is going because it is
Yeah.
evolving and traditional
Mhm.
approaches are starting to diminish and these other approaches are starting to increase. You got to understand them, right?
You gotta. And you gotta incorporate. You gotta incorporate, understand and incorporate So PMI is very big on the word hybridization these days. It's
Yeah.
because they know where things are going.
It's
Look at how
changing.
PMI acquired. Well, they didn't acquire. I think that's. Look at how they. Well, they've got their stamp on it, Roy. If you go to the Agile Alliance website, you
Agile
see PMI
Alliance.
all over it. But there's a reason why PMI did pivot.
Yeah.
Yes, they did a good deed, but at the same time, PMI they know they need to pivot towards AI, which is why
Yep.
you now have a boatload of AI programs with PMI, and
Yep.
you also have a lot of agile concentration in the CAPM, in the PMP, in all of these fields. The only thing that's missing, Roy, is a bringing together of the very many ideas, hybrid, AI, program, project, portfolio. How do I, as an executive, a
Yeah.
professional, a business person, take all of these and make them relevant to my industry? That's what you're going to be learning in the program.
Absolutely.
A lot of stuff.
And I think that there's
Yeah.
an interesting response in the chat. Been technical so long, zooming out sounds like a good idea. So, let me share a little bit about my personal journey. I know Phil, you've got similar stories. One of the hardest things for me when I switched from being a software developer into being in management, and I was management for a number of years, was the ability to let go,
Mm,
the ability to see things in a different perspective. It's hard to trust, right? When your job is on the line and it's someone else that's doing the work, it's really hard to let that go.
right.
So letting go of doing the work, and now you're starting to manage and encourage others to do that work and build that leadership in where you can trust that your team members, the people that you're managing, are able to do it is really, really hard. So, one of the things that this program is also going to help you with is to learn how to build that trust with your teams, to learn how to build in transparency so you can have a trust and verify process. You can trust them to do the job because they have the technical capabilities that you help them acquire, right? But then also you build the transparency so you can see when they're not doing it the right way.
Mm,
And that's going to make you feel more confident that you're able to lead this team into where you need them to be for your own career, right? For your own value, right? You need to accelerate and do more things, right? You can't get there without building great teams, right?
right.
Hard.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, South Bay Conscious. You are conscious, and that's good. That's why you're asking
Good.
these pregnant, deep questions. And I know, we're talking about agile, but part of agile is what Roy and I are demonstrating. This is not just a regurgitation of ideas. This is a sharing of mind. So when you folks come on and ask us questions, we love it. We want to lean
Mhm.
in, and we want to keep talking. Okay, Ben. Thank you, Ben, for the conversation. Yeah, you're very conscious, and that's good. And we talk about that consciousness in the course because we don't just want AI to do the work that we're
No.
supposed to be doing. The decision making. People are talking about AGI, AGI. Well, even when AGI comes, you still got to be the human in the loop.
Yep.
Or maybe Arnold's movie will come to life. You have the Terminator running after you because you were not the human in the loop. All right. So over the past number of minutes, we've been talking about the Agile Manifesto, and we were just on responding to change or following a plan. And we've talked quite a little bit about this, and hopefully you've gotten some ideas about the values. Let's go into the principles, Roy. So satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery.
Mhm.
It is so important to, with AI, ask the question, how can I deliver more value quicker?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. So this is, I don't care what frameworks, what process, whatever you're doing. If you're not doing this first principle, then why are you in business? Right? Everything is about satisfying your customers, delivering faster, delivering what they need, most importantly, not just what they ask for, but what they need. So this is critical, and AI is going to help you get there faster, right? But there's so much that you need to understand. And I see a lot of organizations doing this the wrong way. You need to understand a lot about AI in order to do this properly and safely. Many organizations have not learned enough yet to do this. They're thinking, "Oh, I could just put AI in place and boom, I can develop software faster." No, you can't. You're going to develop really bad software really fast. You're going to generate more
Mm,
bugs really fast. You're going to generate garbage really fast. So you've got to change the way you think about work, do things in a different way, or you're going to generate a lot of bad stuff really, really fast, right?
that is so true, Roy. Let's talk about welcoming changing requirements even late. So through the AI lens, change is no longer a disruption; it's a signal. A lot
Yeah.
of people they may look at AI as being an impedance, but it's an accelerator. It really depends on you as the human because it can help you quickly reevaluate scope, simulate trade-offs very easily, and adapt without rework paralysis. You know, I often joke about how if I was working with a human developer and I asked for all these changes, I would get so much pushback. But
Yep.
with AI, AI is it doesn't complain. It just
And
does.
it's so much
It gets
faster, right?
it's so much faster. Yeah.
Phil, I think this one's a really funny one because anytime I talk about this particular principle in my classes, the initial reaction, especially with people building physical products or people in the software world, they think, "Oh, there's so much risk in making changes so fast. There's so much
Mm.
risk in changing them, too late in the development cycle. So we can't do that. Which no, this doesn't work for us." Well, yeah, of course, there's risk in doing it the wrong way. There's risk in doing it too late in the process. Of course, there's risk in that. But now bringing these tools into play, like, bringing in an AI that's capable of doing this, it's reducing that risk. It's making it a lot
Mm.
easier, a lot safer to make these changes faster. If you're doing it the right way, if you're putting in the right
Right.
guardrails, of course, your risk is now significantly reduced. So you can make changes later in development
Mm.
safely, right? So
Yeah.
it's completely changed the way that we think about work and trying to put building things in a traditional, like an SDLC as an example, if you put it into a traditional, software development lifecycle, it doesn't work anymore, right? You got to think differently, right, Phil?
Absolutely. So, just for context, I know some of our friends, we got friends who are zealots, and that's okay, Roy,
That's
right?
okay. Absolutely. We
We
welcome
got
it.
zealots,
Yeah.
yeah. So our agile zealot friends, they might think we are, coming against the manifesto. No, we're only showing you that AI is an augmentation of the already great thinking, but you got to amplify the thinking even more, like deliver working solutions frequently. Well, in the world of agile, we want you to think about the hyper iterative nature of AI influenced projects. The frequency beats polish. Let's go to the old days of predictive where you would do everything to be picture perfect.
Yep.
Well, AI helps you beat that. I want to get it all polished. AI enables rapid scaffolding, fast
Yeah.
experimentation, low cost failure. You want to talk about that, Roy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so let's work back with low cost failure, right? So you can build something, a prototype, an example, a test in seconds, minutes at
Mm.
most, right? It's so fast. So if you fail and you've only spent 5 minutes doing something, what's the cost of that? Right. So now fail really, really, really fast, right? Fail
Yeah.
lots, and
Yeah.
jump in and make those mistakes because the cost of those failures is so small now. But
Mm.
I think it's really important to discuss another aspect of what you just talked about, and that is, it's an amplifier, right? It's, whatever you do, it's going to amplify, it's going to enable you to go faster. But let's put a very fine point on it. If you're a bad coder, it's going to make you a really fast bad coder, right? It amplifies you, right? So
Mm.
it relies on your skills. It relies on you being good at your job and having that capability because it's just going to do what you tell it to do just really, really fast. All right. So
Absolutely.
human, we have to develop human skills alongside of the AI skills, or it's just going to do
Mm.
really bad stuff really fast. Right.
That is so true, Roy. And talking about the AI skills, that leads us to thinking of AI as a partner.
Yeah.
AI could be a partner because when you talk about business people and developers working together daily, those in this AI age understand that business people and developers must work together, but they must also include a new stakeholder, which is
Mhm.
artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And you got to understand AI just becomes the shared language. Teams that are forward thinking, they are leaning all in, using AI to translate business intent into technical options. You still have to have the awareness of what your business intent is, your values, your principles as an organization, your strategic business objective, right? AI can help you very quickly map all of those ideas, bridge the gaps, jargon gaps, and align faster. AI can help you break down silos, break down obstacles, right, Roy?
Absolutely. And it's going to change the way that we build things. It's already starting to, but it's just getting started.
The best is yet to come.
Let's hope so anyway.
The fear mongering about AI is quite comedic because you have those on the sidelines refusing to pivot, thinking
Mistake.
that AI is gonna steal your data. AI is gonna publicly shame you, and all sorts of crazy ideas. Don't you hear that, Roy?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it was interesting just yesterday, actually. It was talking with a CISO, a chief information security officer at an organization. And we were talking about the risk of bringing AI into organizations, security challenges, that kind of stuff. That's his world. And he said, yeah, we actually are obviously concerned about it. And we need to roll out the right policies and the right guardrails to make sure we're not doing bad things. But he said he kind of compared it to the earlier days when organizations were moving from on-prem data centers to the cloud. He said the problem
Mm,
back then is they didn't understand. They didn't understand what it meant to go to the cloud. They had no policies in place to protect data that was actually public, that was out there on the
mm,
cloud. So they went through a lot of very painful things. Most organizations went through painful failures where they had breaches and all kinds of bad stuff happening. Well, they learned a lot from that. So now they're very aware how to try to keep their data private. They've got mechanisms in place to make that better. So there's an evolution that they still have to go through. They still need to learn a little bit, but it's a lot better than it was in the past. If we had tried this 10, 15 years ago,
oh,
wow. Huge, huge failures,
no
right? But
chance.
now, the world's a little more evolved. We
Yes.
understand how to keep things private on the cloud, at least a little bit better anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, it kind of prepared us for where we are and has been part of the evolution. So let's talk about this very human centric idea, building projects around motivated individuals. I like what you always say, hire adults and
Yep.
the adults will take care of themselves. You won't need to babysit. But motivation now includes this cognitive relief.
Yeah.
AI removes repetitive thinking, manual busy work and mental drag, and people are becoming more aware of that. So while the documentation, as we said in the beginning, has become very important for feeding AI about our principles, our work styles, our consciousness,
Mhm.
humans stay motivated when they do human work. So you can take away the grunt work, you can give that to AI, but you still maintain the human centered work, which is you being the human in the loop, you having conversations. AI
Yep.
is not going to take away the conversations that need to be had in the boardroom. And when you're in the boardroom, you best come with your best self because you can't ask GPT for an answer. You will be you will be publicly revealed and shamed, right, Roy?
I am not going to share the company because it would be a very inappropriate thing for me to do. But I recently heard of a story where a board member actually asked for a board agent to be installed so they can help them
Oh my
know
God.
what questions to ask. And it's
Oh
like,
Lord.
go and they said no, they weren't going to do that, which was the right answer. But those are the challenges that we're facing, right? We do have to be careful
Oh
of that.
dear.
Just a real quick story about the motivated individuals. So I have a friend of mine, very grumpy individual, and he was in a bad job. He just really did not like what he was doing, so he was pretty down. And I got him turned on to AI. And over the past month, he's really evolved and he's doing more and more interesting things. And he's been using a rapid prototyping AI kind of tool, similar to the
Mm,
one, actually the same one that you typically use. And he's
mm,
building these tools, this tool that he's building, and he's having a lot of fun doing it. And his wife commented to him, "It's like you are the happiest I've seen you in years." It's like I'm doing something that I like.
wow.
And so motivation, bringing these tools into play where you can try and fail and try and fail, and you're doing interesting things. You're doing
Mm,
things that they are interested in doing a lot faster. He said he would get into it and just forget about time. He was just
wow.
so excited about what he was doing and so motivated by using these new
Mm,
tools that it's changed his entire perspective. So
wow.
these tools should not be viewed as demotivators. They're things
Yes.
that can help you do the things you love doing faster and maybe take away a lot of the things you don't love doing.
I love that, Roy. I mean, that just reminds me of Herzberg's theory of hygiene factors.
Yeah.
People are not motivated necessarily by the salary and all that. Taking them away would be bad. But
Yeah.
what really motivates people is having a self worth of what they're doing,
Yeah.
understanding the value of what they're doing, and being excited about it. So it just sounds like a Herzberg story all
There
over.
you go. Exactly.
Lovely stuff. And that takes us to another human centric one. This is what AI will not, should not replace face to face conversation is great when you can have it, but when you're not able to, uh, so Roy, let's just talk about good old having the cameras on. It's not rocket science. This could help. This is where I've received the most pushback in agile training. When I give them the manifesto and I say, go at it, debate it, tell me what you don't agree with. The number one
This
that
is
always
usually the
comes up
one.
is this one.
Yep.
Is this one. And they're like, well, Phil, we actually work better because we develop together and we need to see a single shared screen and contribute in that way. So if we were to meet face to face, they would be worthless. But meeting online together, it actually is helpful. So have you had any pushback on this one, Roy?
Constant, constant. We're
Mm,
an international organization. We can't meet face to face. The budgets aren't there for travel. It's like, yeah, absolutely correct. So guess what? You're going to be on a lot of Zoom meetings or Teams meetings or whatever electronic. So how can we make those closer to face to face? Turn your stinking cameras on. Right? And this is a risk that we may have as we're starting to rely more heavily on tools like AI as a partner.
mm,
We might start to no longer have that human connection, right? Or
mm,
at least it might diminish. Now that is a huge, huge risk. Human beings are social creatures. You've got
true.
to keep the human connection. You've got to socialize. So it's now even more important to build those
Mm,
socialization activities. Get on a 15-minute daily scrum call. And guess what? You're going to be talking less about work and maybe more talking about each other, sharing
yeah.
stories, having a socialization time. The human
Mm,
aspect is more critical than it ever was because now you've got this AI partner that you're going to be talking with on a regular basis. That's not a human,
mm.
right? It's just not a human being. I thought it was really funny. I think it was Sam Altman, made the statement that it costs tens of millions of dollars every year just saying please and thank you to your AI, right? Because of the compute and energy consumption, right?
Yeah.
And all that. And it's true, right?
Uh-huh.
People tend to whatever that word is. They make it treat it like a
Anthro-
human, right? I'm having a hard time talking apparently today. Anthropomorphize. There
Anthropomorphize,
it is.
whatever.
So we tend to treat it as a human being, but it's not a human,
It's
and
not.
we need to remember that. And it might make us feel good. And it might because
Mm,
AI is notoriously sycophantic. It's like, oh,
yes.
you're a genius. What a great idea. It's like, I just made the worst idea ever. And now you're telling me this is awesome. Let's go down that thread because you're making me feel good. Right.
Oh dear.
So now the human connection is even more important. Right. So that is one of my biggest concerns is that we're going to start losing that, and
Mm.
we got to keep it in check.
we
Right.
got to we got to consciously do everything possible, going back to face-to-face conversation and how people now use AI in the meetings. One of the most distracting things is having AI very visibly take copious notes on the side panel.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the best use of AI. So Roy, I want to lean into your
Yeah.
ideas about how you can use Copilot to not just be a dumb terminal facilitator, but to
Mhm.
get it to be a little bit more even humanistic in its value it gives you. What do you have to share with us about that?
Yeah. So what we're not really using these facilitation tools for, and Copilot Facilitator Agent is one of these things. We're not using them really to do analysis of the meetings. Great. I don't have to take meeting notes. That's awesome. That's a big help, right? It saves some time. I don't have to take notes as I'm talking. Now I can focus on talking, right, and sharing ideas. That's great. And it can take attendance for us. Maybe do a meeting summary. Fantastic. But what about other things we can get from it? Why don't we ask it? So, who was not engaging? What decisions did we come to? Did we come to the right decisions? What did we miss? Right? Why don't you do some analysis of the meeting? And these tools will let you do that. You got to use it for that. You got
Mm,
to ask it, right? Dig in and ask for more analysis of the meeting. How did it run? What can we do
mhm.
better next time? Is there any reflections that we can dig deep into? What did we miss? Right. So
Right.
now maybe you can use these tools because one thing it does really well is it looks for patterns, right?
Mm,
Movement patterns, speech patterns. AI is really good at that, right? It's not a true understanding, but it's close, right? It's pattern recognition. It can help you do a deeper analysis of the quality of these meetings and maybe help you review or improve it next time or dive into
mm.
issues that maybe you forgot to discuss or didn't discuss. Maybe you could have dug deeper into
Love
things,
it.
right?
I love it, Roy. So having more of a Kaizen mindedness than AI just doing busy work in the background.
Exactly.
I love it. and probably very useful if you were ever to do some sort of retrospection and if AI was in the loop, right?
Think about project managers, right? That one of their primary jobs is facilitate meetings.
That's
Well,
true.
right? They could use these kinds of tools to get better at that.
Mm, I love it. Okay. So Roy, we'll kind of step on the gas a little bit
Yeah,
because I
you got
can see it coming up around the 1 hour mark when people start thinking about lunch, that
it.
kind of
Yes.
stuff. So, so working product, we say working product is a primary measure of progress. Activity is no longer evidence.
Yeah.
AI can produce motion easily, but only outcomes
Yeah.
prove value. And that's one of the big things we're going to be talking about all through. You see, I think one of the biggest mistakes, and it's a massive takeaway we're giving people when we take a look at this world, we've been programmed to think about projects, operations, programs,
Mhm.
and maybe services or results. But
Mhm.
the overarching thought of why are we doing this in the first place and benefits and value is often missing. So when we talk about working product being a primary measure of progress, yeah, AI can produce motion, but it still goes back to that idea about outcomes proving value, right, Roy?
100%. And as you were talking through, programs and projects, and I was picturing the hierarchy and the logistics and the tasks and
Yeah.
all of the tactics of building that
Yes.
out. And nowhere in that was the statement of value and
Mm.
results and outcomes, right? And
It's
it's all
sobering, Roy. It's very sobering because
it
you have
is.
a lot of people doing stuff. And
Yes.
it's not that they're not getting outcomes, they're just not attuned to what the end game is in all of this, you know?
Yeah. Now you think about it, is it someone else's job to think about those things? Or should it be everyone's job to think
It
about
should
those
be
things?
everyone. Yeah.
Everyone should be focusing on that, right? Everybody should
Mm.
be acting as if the CEO and their customer was sitting right next to them every moment of the day. So they're
Yeah.
making decisions to help improve, right? Help build better value, better experiences for your customers and your organization, right? That's what we should
Mm.
be focusing on, right?
Absolutely. Now, speaking about value and outcomes, let's go on
Mhm.
to sustainable development. Burnout scales faster with AI misuse. So, forward thinking leaders use AI to smooth peaks, to reduce cognitive overload and protect human energy. But
Mhm.
if you allow the AI to use you, then you could still be like the hamster in a wheel. What should we do to avoid this, Roy?
Yeah, and this is something that I also worry about, as we mentioned earlier. People can kind of get lost in these AI sessions. If you really start enjoying it, you can lose yourself pretty quickly. Now you're having fun, but you can burn yourself out pretty quickly, right? You got to have that
Mm,
socialization. You got to just step away from your desk. I make it a point to remind myself. I actually have a little timer to remind myself to get up and walk away, so that I
mm,
don't just get sucked into an AI conversation. We
mm,
have to build in that sustainability. Remember, they're human beings at the end of the day that are doing this work. So it is something that we need to watch out for, right? It's keep people motivated, keep them having fun, remind them to walk away from their desk periodically. You're going to be able to build a lot of things really, really fast, make decisions really, really fast, but you're still human beings. You still have physical limitations. You got to walk away. You got to treat yourself
mm,
appropriately, or you're going to burn yourself out and make a lot of really bad decisions faster.
mm.
Not good.
Right, we got a really nice conversation from our friend Dan here. It's a great session. Also, super interested.
Yeah.
So, as opposed to the 50% off on the back end, we've actually reduced it way beyond what it should be. But here's the thing: we're going to do for people who join. Roy and I have a battery of sessions that we're going to be conducting in 2026, and these are really exciting. So when people see this, they forget PMI is always at work, aren't
Yeah.
they, Roy? They're always working. So I don't know whether you're in this world, Dan, but PMI have got a standard for project management as well called the PMBOK guide. We're going to be doing sessions on that. Now, for those
Mhm.
of you who join this cohort, we're going to invite you to all of our other battery of sessions. So we have one on the Agile Practice Guide, second edition, which is going to be crazy. That's going to be really exciting because you see how Roy and I roll. We don't pull punches. We just tell it like it is.
Mhm.
And then we're also going to be breaking down PMBOK Guide 8th edition. And then we have other sessions that we might have in 2026 that are outside of the program confines that we're doing on 3rd of January. to June, we will invite you to those at no additional cost. So it would make sense if you're a lifelong learner who values the knowledge over, the finances. This will just be an absolute steal, right, Roy?
Oh, 100%. And Ben, something to think about too is if you like this interaction style, where Phil and I are just kind of talking, this is the way we teach our courses. We don't have a script. This is not scripted, right? This is
Mm.
just us talking with each other, and we have an idea of the topics that we're covering. And it's kind of the way that we teach as well. We have our slides that are the guides, but more of it is the discussion, the interaction. We invite people to say, "I don't agree with that." We invite you into the discussion. We want you to share your thoughts. So it's very interactive. They're a lot of I think they're a lot of fun. Anyway, we typically get those kinds of comments of that. Yeah, that was great. That was a lot of fun.
We just have a blast doing it, and we also want to hear from you along the way. It's very different training. That's why we tell you it's residency style. You are coming to camp with us, and our mindsets and ideas are rubbing off on you. By the time you are done, your confidence level. Let's talk about this for a second, Roy, because you know what happens in a lot of these certification programs
Yeah.
is you get the stamp of approval. You are now a PMP or CSM or PSM or whatever you are, right?
Yep.
But when you go back, you're like, do I really have the understanding of how to pragmatize it? You see. And Roy and I have been there. We've been
Oh, I've
imposters
got lots of
ourselves.
failed stories. Yep.
Have a ton of stories. And you're going to be learning how we went through the peaks and the valleys, the highs and the lows, and you have the best of both worlds. You have someone who has been in the world of predictive, staunch predictive, earned value management. Some
Oof.
people don't even know what that thing is today because it's kind of eroded somewhat, but we have earned value management and the world of processes and very, very prescriptive. And I'm talking about being in the boardroom every week and speaking to senior management about your battery of programs and why your SPI and your CPIs are what they are. At the same time, you've got Roy, who's been in the very technical world of what language were you doing back in the day, Roy?
Oh,
Back
dude, I started out with like assembly language years and years ago, and I did assembly language, then a very short stint with Fortran, and I went into C and C sharp and C plus plus and Java and all those languages, and then eventually just said, okay, enough. It's time to move on to other things, and became a manager and moved away from it. But
and you
yeah,
were in banking, isn't it, Roy?
yeah, I have a lot of background in banking. Yeah, that wasn't my original start, but yeah, I was in the finance world for a long time.
Yeah, I worked at Citigroup myself. So you got two instructors who have had very diverse careers. One extremely predictive, one extremely technical, and moving into the world of agile and going through the whole evolution of bringing agile in to transform the firm and moving away from that into more agility focused pivoting. Right, Roy?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And now, the work that I do is more about helping organizations learn how to do these things that we're going to be teaching in the course. So my whole career is based on helping organizations design for adaptability, to be able to change more frequently, and maybe along the way treat their employees a little better too. Right.
Absolutely. So going back to your question, we have already done the front loading of value. You're going to have so much value from this program. It's going to be mind blowing, but not just these sessions. Like I said, we'll invite you to other things we're doing. So how's that? Okay. It'll be lovely to have you. For those who are just joining, we're talking about looking at the world of agile and predictive through an AI lens. And this is in preparation for our next year's program, Professional Program Leader. There is nothing like this out there. Trust me when I tell you, if you've heard the name John Maxwell, I'm a John Maxwell certified speaker, coach, trainer, and author. And I will be bringing in John Maxwell's principles and ideas. We have a very robust curriculum. Look, if you've ever wanted to learn leadership, you're in the right place. There's
Mhm.
a lot of people who think leadership is management, but it's not. This program will help you demystify all of that. But speaking of leadership, jumping right back into where we were, part of leadership is paying attention to the right stuff. So technical excellence and good design, right? Paying attention to that, it enhances your agility. but AI amplifies both excellence and slop. We have this term, Roy, AI slop. Well,
Yeah.
AI slop is what it is if the human in the loop is sloppy.
Exactly, exactly. And I think this is probably one of the biggest mindset shifts that people are going to have to adjust to. And that is, the job of an engineer, and that's the same in any industry. I don't care whatever industry you're in. If you're an engineer, your job is going to change. It's no longer about doing the work. Now it's more about describing how to do the work.
Mm,
So it's kind of like meta engineering. And maybe I should coin that phrase. I kind of like that.
yeah.
Right? You're describing how to do the work, right? So now your design is more important, your guardrails are more important, your standards are more important. So part of your job really becomes more about teaching someone, in this case, often an AI, how to do the job for you,
Mm,
right? So if you're not good at that, if your organization has got not good at defining the context of how to do work, and you're going to have some problems with AI. It's going to build bad stuff because
absolutely.
you haven't defined the standards.
Absolutely. It goes back to echo the great Steve Jobs, who said, design is not what it looks like or what it feels like. Design is how it works. You have to understand the inner workings of what you're doing. And it's that mindedness, as Roy was saying, that meta engineering mindedness. It just has to permeate in this day and age. Otherwise, you will be left behind,
Mhm.
right? Because the world of work in engineering is evolving, right? And it's getting more down to being a superior prompt engineer, not just an engineer, but a superior prompt engineer. And
Exactly.
prompt engineering requires a lot of energy and a lot of focus. It's not just, oh, throw it over to AI and ask AI to build it. You have to describe it
Please
in
don't
intricate
do
detail, right, Roy?
that.
Oh dear. Okay. And speaking of that, Roy, let's go on to simplicity. How should we think of simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done? People always struggle with this. I think this is probably one of the top three that I
Yep.
get pushback on, like, Phil, slow down, slow down. This doesn't make any sense. How would you help people unravel this one, Roy?
Yeah, I think there are really two lenses or two perspectives on this one. One of them is, as it says here, AI temp success. So you can easily generate a lot more than you actually need, and it's going to be very
Mm.
tempting because it's very fast, right? If a client doesn't ask for something and doesn't need it, then you don't do it, right? You still need to focus on what's the most valuable, and it's not always, hey, this is cool, right?
Mm.
Tempting. But here's another perspective of this is that I've seen this happen when I teach prompt engineering courses. They try to build the perfect prompt. So they don't actually iterate. They don't, say, start with a simple prompt and grow it. They try to put everything in their very first prompt. And guess what? The prompt still stinks, right? It's still a bad prompt. So you have to really get into that iterative mindset, not just in doing work, but also how you interact with your AI. It's an iteration, it's an iterative approach, and you're going to do lots of bad prompts, and you will
Hmm.
get used to that. And it's okay. It doesn't matter. So because it's so fast to change it, right?
Mm. So correct, Roy. There's this syndrome, I just call it the gourmand syndrome, which just means greedy in French. You can become so greedy with AI that you want every feature. Back in the day, the product owner would say, okay, let's prioritize this thing. But instead of having that hat on, you have the gourmand hat. You go to the bakery and you want all the scones and all the cakes. And that's not how it works. The real skill is knowing what not to generate and choosing restraint over
Mhm.
noise. So
100%.
yeah, AI can develop a million things in a day, but the real work is knowing what brings the most value for the customer and helping the customer discover, right?
Mhm. It's about knowing what not to do, right?
Mm, what not to do, exactly. Okay, best architectures and designs emerge from self-organizing teams through
Mhm.
our AI lens, our AI enhanced lens. AI supports exploration, not command. We're still not going to be lording it over the team saying, well, AI told me we need this, so you do it, team. That is a sure way to failure. Teams that think together and test quickly win. So, Roy, what's our general perspective from in the practical world about best architectures and self-organizing? That's a term people struggle with. You remember,
It
Roy,
is.
we were teaching this company, name withheld,
Mhm.
and someone said, "Well, this wouldn't fly in our firm. You can't help self-organized teams."
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I said they're wrong. And yes, you absolutely can have self-organizing teams. What it requires is a different managerial and leadership mentality to enable
Mhm.
those self-organizing teams. And the challenge is many organizations are top-down structure, hierarchical, making the jobs easier for management and leaders rather than making the job easier for the people doing the work. I always find
Mhm.
it funny that we in organizations we're typically very hierarchical. We organize based on skill sets and all this kind of stuff. But the reality is work doesn't fit neatly within those lines of the hierarchy. The work tends to span across the hierarchy. And then we build in these complex processes to enable it. And then bad things happen, right? So
Mm.
self-organizing teams, still important, still need to do it.
Absolutely. All right. And we have our final one. And this is a favorite because a lot of teams, oh my goodness, if only they did it, Roy. If only they did this privately and
Mhm.
publicly as a team. If only they retrospected. If only. But a lot of teams, they do the same thing from
Yep.
Q1 to Q4,
And complain about it.
expecting a different result. Yes. And they complain about it
Yep.
instead of having this reflection lens, right? So
Exactly. Exactly.
teams, the idea is to retrospect and do it privately, but do it as a team.
Yep.
And reflection is now data rich. When you reflect, when you have the right data to reflect on and you use AI as an amplifier, it's just going to help you spot bad patterns,
Yep.
surface blind spots. It's going to help you improve faster. Let me even just say if you are about to communicate and you put your mind into a communication that you're going to like send out, AI can help you right there see ways you can improve what you're about to say, right, Roy?
Absolutely. It might give you some perspectives that you hadn't thought of, so you can explore together about different options. And I think this principle number 12 becomes even more important, not just getting together to reflect, but reflecting individually continuously. Right. So it's maybe more
Mm.
of a true Kaizen kind of approach where you're continuously looking to improve, improving yourself, improving your relationship with AI, improving your relationship with your team members. And I would even say the next level to build truly adaptive organizations, you need to have the organization reflecting. Right. So how is the
Mm.
org doing? Is the work flowing properly? Things like that. So this is to me, this becomes even more important than it ever was before. And it was already one of the most important things you could do.
Absolutely. All right. So here's the meta shift. What Agile will become. It's no longer about ceremonies. It never was, but this is time to hyper tune our thinking. It's no longer about ceremonies and roles and framework compliance.
Mhm.
It's now about sense making. It's now about judgment so that you can sensibly pivot. It's now about leadership, understanding uncertainty. And as a result of that, creating safe space for your people. It's about forward thinking principles, right? AI accelerates delivery, but still humans will define the direction.
Yep.
It's about speed, but not speed without reflection, because that's just noise. This is where you, as the human, need to say, okay, time out, let's reflect. Let's ponder on the events of the day, of the quarter, of the sprint, or whatever time box you might be using. Tools serve thinking, they don't replace it. So AI as a tool is just helping you amplify your thinking. It is not replacing your thinking. When we talk about value, it's all in the overarching outcome. It's not in the artifact. You can have tons of artifacts that no one is using and no one's getting value from. The overall value is what matters. Outcomes, not artifacts. What
Mhm.
other high levels of thinking should we be pondering on, Roy?
Yeah, these are key items. Something I would encourage people to think about too is there's a word that we're going to be using a lot during our session called flow.
Hmm.
You need to think about how work flows across your organization, across your team, where your bottlenecks are, where you need to do rework. You need to think of it as a system. Your organization is a system. Your team is a system. So this is literally called systems thinking. And that flow mentality is really important because you're focusing on reducing those friction points in getting work done so that it's smooth and clean and fast from idea to delivery as quick as possible. So that's something we're gonna talk a lot about is how to enable proper flow in your organization, or what signs to look for, and what to do about it when you start seeing certain signals, right?
Mm. Great stuff. Okay. Well, at this time, we're almost done because We've done a lot of the work, the groundwork for the PMBOK guide reveal. I know some people just want to hear, okay, Phil, how should I look at, through the AI? How should I look at PMBOK? Yeah, we're coming to that. But any questions? We want to take any questions you might have. Questions, comments. I didn't even check on LinkedIn, Roy. I should have. You
I
know
did not.
why I
I'm not
normally
doing my
check?
job, Bill.
I normally check on LinkedIn because it's funny. People could chat all day long on LinkedIn and it doesn't come through for some reason. And Instagram, I've kind of been keeping an eye on Instagram. But let's see. Okay, I should have shared this in Instagram. My bad. All right. So I just shared one of the links that I've been referring to quite a lot on Instagram. Okay, let's go to LinkedIn. I don't see any red. Oh, I do see some red alarm bells. Let's see. Um, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I don't see any immediate LinkedIn messages.
Yep.
But we are taking questions now. So if you have any questions, any ponderings, any thoughts, do share them. But we're very soon going to be pivoting to the world of PMBOK. Okay, I don't see anything. So let's do this. Let's bring up one of my favorite mediums. I love to do things with whiteboards because it just it just helps. So as opposed to doing things with text and slides, let's use this whiteboard system. And this is where we are going to pivot to discuss the world of PMBOK Guide. So I'm not sure if you folks have looked at the new PMBOK Guide 8th edition. PMBOK Guide 8th edition has retained the structure of the 5 process groups, and that has not gone away. And I really want to lean into those higher levels of thinking of PMBOK Guide because we can get lost in the, oh, well, it's integration. No, it's governance. Oh, it's cost. No, it's finance. No, I don't want to get into that tunnel because we could be there all day, which is not going to be very productive. But let's jump into this other world here. Let's see. Okay, let's remove, let's stop, and let's share this one. Here we go, Sideboard. Okay. So we're gonna share on the screen. So when we think about PMBOK, Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide, it's broken down at a higher level into step one, initiate the project. Initiating. So, Roy, it's funny because before we got on the call, you and I were talking about how a lot of times we just jump into what we call development of plans.
Hmm.
But in the world of evolving technologies and artificial intelligence, it becomes more important to say, hold on, before you authorize this thing, how about a little bit of analysis?
Yep. Yep.
And we're quite guilty of not having very good frameworks and methods for doing thorough analysis,
Hmm.
you know. But in the world of agile, I think there's some tools we can borrow.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There are, things like value stream analysis. There's, how about, just seeing if we align to strategy? We tend to initiate projects very quick. Well, I'm going to say very quickly, but often projects don't get initiated fast. We initiate these things without seeing if it's actually really going to help us move the needle on our strategy. There are executives and others, they spend a lot of time trying to figure out where they want to go as an organization. And a whole bunch of projects wind up on your portfolio. And do they actually really align? Do they actually really do anything for your strategy? There's a bunch of things we should think about before we initiate a
Mm,
project. And AI can help us with that. Imagine if you had a a context repository of all of the direction that we want to
Mm.
go, our organizational strategy, our values, our customer sentiment, where are we going as an organization? Have all that context available and using AI to say, is this fitting? Right? Does this
Mm.
work? Is this part of our strategy? Will it help accelerate it? Will it slow us down? Is it meaningless? You could make use of AI to help you decide, is this the right thing to work on? Right?
Those are brilliant thoughts, Roy. So let's put some ideas here for a friend. So when you're thinking like that in this new world of AI, as Roy was alluding to, you got to ask questions like, okay, can we predict feasibility? Should we
Mhm.
do some benefits realization forecasting? Let's move from intuition, just dumb luck and hunches, to evidence based go or no go. AI can help you immensely. So I think one of the things that is missing in a lot of the conversation is what precedes initiating. Because anyone can develop a project charter with the software available. You can just ask GPT, create a project charter, or PMI's Infinity. PMI has Infinity.
Mhm.
Some people use it and it's a good tool, but if you're using the tool without insight, you'll keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas you should be asking, am I doing the right thing? So
And
that's
I think it's
initiating.
important that AI that you just mentioned, it is a good tool, but it's
Mm.
trained on PMI data, not trained on your organizational data, right? So if you can
Absolutely.
add that and your organizational data, now you've got great
Mm.
confidence, right?
Empiricism, that data, that tested and tried, not just, oh, well, ChatGPT told me, but is
Oh,
it based
yeah.
on, oh, the proverbial ChatGPT told me? You can't,
Yep.
you can't keep doing that. You gotta evolve. All right. The next thing, Roy, that we do very well, maybe too well for our own good in the world of PMI, is planning. Right? We talk a lot about plans. Oh my goodness, Roy! If I started telling you the plans that we have, well, you've worked for some of these firms, so you've probably heard it.
Yep.
You know, but we have a project management plan for everything, but we have a scope management plan, a schedule management plan, a cost management plan, a quality management plan, a resource management plan, a
Yep.
communications management plan, a risk management plan, not to
Yep.
mention a change management plan and a configuration management plan and a procurement management plan and a stakeholder engagement plan.
And Phil, how long do they survive as you're working on a project?
Honestly, Roy, the question needs to be, do you even refer to these plans
And they never do.
once?
Yep.
I worked on a project, Roy, and I'll keep the company confidential to protect the non innocent. But true story, a boss said, okay, after developing the Gantt chart, okay, Phil, just leave it on the wall. Aren't we gonna use it to track the No, no, no. This was just for stakeholder X. He just wanted it. Let's move on and do things more agilely. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. And that's the sad reality. A lot of times we develop these big old plans that are valueless to
Yep.
us as a team, valueless to many of the other stakeholders. People cry for a lot of stuff. And then you end up developing these big old Gantt charts, these big old plans, and they're not being used, or
Yep.
they're being used the wrong way to hold people to the fire as
Mhm.
carrot and sticks. We
Yep.
want to move away from that mindset. So, my idea as far as how AI can help you, you want to use AI as much as possible to do the grunt work, right? So,
Exactly.
integrated plans, once you have the structure in place and you feed it the right data, and maybe you've got empirical data that could be used, don't reinvent the wheel. Just reuse a lot of the information that you have. But you also need to be thinking about scenario simulation and optimization. You can use AI to help you create your work breakdown structure a lot quicker.
Yep.
I didn't say do it for you, but help you. You still need to feed it the data. Still need to think about the logistics yourself, but AI can come alongside you and help you do those things. So, as
Mhm.
opposed to you using so much brain power, you can use your brain power for more stakeholder, human oriented things. So, Roy, is this kind of the mindedness we think about in this agile world as we look
100%.
at what our tools can do for us with backlogs and such?
100%. I will say that in a more agile environment, you would not need 90% of those plans, right? You just don't do them because, as you said, they're either
Mm,
valueless or very low value. Um,
mm,
and you learn as you're doing things so fast that, I'm not going to spend months and months putting together all these plans. I'm going to spend a week or a few days,
mm,
and AI
mhm.
may make that even faster. Do these plans as fast as possible, and do the right plans, the ones that you need, and then start building things and see what happens. Here's the reality: is the economics of experimentation and failing have just significantly shrunk. It doesn't
Yeah.
cost nearly as much to do more experimentation. It's not nearly as much risk to experiment more.
Mm,
So if you're in an environment that requires all of these plans and all these predictability and control mechanisms put in place, you're going to restrict your ability to use AI. You're not looking at the bigger picture that I don't need them anymore because I
mm,
don't have as much risk. It's not going to cost me as much if it goes wrong,
yeah.
right? So you got to adjust, right? So we don't do those things because they're just not really that valuable.
Absolutely. And one of the words that I use, when I'm using a tool such as AI to plan, I'm going to ask it the question, how can I make this a leaner, meaner plan?
Yeah.
Lean and mean. Instead of having big old plans that no one looks at, no one cares, you want to do the valuable stuff. And as you can see on the screen here, part of the valuable stuff is actually using AI to simulate risks, do risk
Mhm.
modeling, resource modeling. Those are some of the things that could help you way beyond just having stacks of documentation or gigabytes of PDF documents that no one cares about.
Yeah, and
All
I
right.
do that as well in an agile world. And I think we don't do it enough in agile. That we really should be doing more risk analysis.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very true, Roy.
Yeah.
And in our Agile Basics program, we often say these are things you can borrow from the
Yeah.
predictive world. And because we have that risk number, that risk factor that
Yeah.
we talk about in Agile. We call it a risk score in predictive, but we look
Yeah.
at it as a factor. We need to do a lot more like that in Agile for
We really
sure.
should. Agreed.
And then we come to one of our favorite places, which is actually getting the work done, which is executing.
Mhm.
So you as a project leader, if you really wanted to use AI to amp up your leadership, because executing is getting the work done, but you are not the developer, right? You're not one of the developers typically. You could be, but if you are more of a leader, here's some of the ideas you could be thinking about. So, what can AI help you do? It could help your thinking in terms of task prioritization, recommendations. You should still own the final decision of prioritization. It's like a
100%.
product owner saying, "Oh, help me, AI, tell me what to." No, you as a product owner should first come to the tool. What I typically do, Roy, before I use the tool to pivot, I have my own ideas, and I
Yes.
deliberately do not share my ideas with AI. I
Mhm.
want to keep my ideas to the side, and then I ask it when it has given me its AI non-human response. I'll like give it my idea and say, bottom line it with this. What do you think about this? I have to be honest, a lot of times what the AI has plus what I have makes a lethal mix, a crazy awesome mix
Yeah.
that will help decimate any doubt or any problems or any risks. But if you just go with, oh, AI, tell me what to do, almighty AI, you don't get very good output that will be as
Exactly.
good as you and the human and the AI.
It was interesting, Phil. Yet I have been asked to create a collection of case studies to help sell agile coaching and things like that with one of my training partners. And I immediately went to ChatGPT and I said, "Okay, I need to build some case studies. Let's do it together. Would you like my client list to start with, so that we can, start building case studies?" And I've been interacting with ChatGPT long enough, and we have an interaction style that we're
Mm-hmm.
both familiar with. And it said, "Well, actually, I'd really recommend instead that we build the patterns, the archetype of your case studies, and then we can apply your clients to it later." And it said, "Here's the reason I came up with this, because I tell it, tell me why you're doing
Mm-hmm.
things." And it came back with some Harvard Business Review articles that suggested that this is a better approach to doing case studies. So I said, "All right, let's find out. Let's explore together." And I asked to take the lead, ask the questions that it needed to. in order to generate this. And it said, great, fantastic. Gave me a list of questions, filled out the answers, and it led me down the path. And guess what? It was really good, right? I
Mm,
never would have thought of doing that. So here's where discovering an approach rather than saying, I want to do this, let's do it.
mm,
So it's using it as a thinking partner. It's because it has
yeah,
access to all of those articles, right? All those
that's
ideas,
true.
brilliant people, a lot smarter than us, right? So we
Exactly.
can say, here's what this person thinks, or here's where this what this organization thinks. Cool, let's try it. Right.
Mm,
That's the way you use AI, right? Think,
absolutely. I love that, Roy. I love that story. It's a very, very practical story that people can take away and see the power in it.
yeah,
Someone once said it's like having 1,000 Einsteins and the Da Vinci's and just name it. It's like having them in your pocket at your beck and call to just say, "Hey, I know you know this.
yep.
This
What
is
do you
my
got?
idea. What do you got?" Yeah,
Yep, exactly.
and that's how to use it as a partner. So
Yeah,
in executing, you can use it for recommendations. Great for real time performance monitoring if the data is clean. You got good data, could be very helpful. Automated documentation, virtual project assistance, just so invaluable. And I hate to quote the numbers, but SAP had a staggering, no, not SAP, Salesforce had a staggering number of AI augmentation
mhm,
initiatives and how many human hours they have replaced. But those are tedious human hours that can be used somewhere else.
yeah,
That's how I like looking at it. Instead of being bogged down by AI is taking away my job, I like looking at it like AI is taking away grunt work,
yep.
and another human will take your job, not the AI. It's another human that knows how to leverage AI that takes
If
away
people should
jobs.
be thinking about it is how can I leverage AI to so it can do the things I don't like doing,
Mm,
right? Let it take away the grunt work. That's the good use.
absolutely. All right. So we're going to shift from manual coordination to intelligent execution. When you do that, the problem is the data. The data is always a problem, Roy. A lot of firms, they don't have the data that could be
Yep.
so liberating for their people. You know, if only they had the data that could help. But if they had the data, they could move away from a lot of manual, menial stuff to
Mhm.
more automated stuff. All right. The next big bucket that we have here is monitoring and controlling.
Mhm.
And going back to us speaking about data, data can help you wildly improve in these
Critically.
areas, right? Let's talk about continuous performance tracking. So, Roy, in this agile world that we talk about, I'm not sure what Jira has or what any of these version one. I'm sure they're trying wildly to pivot to AI. Do you see that?
They are. Jira Atlassian has, the tool, I think it's called Rovo, which is built into Jira.
Mm,
Um, I would let's just say that it's an early version, right? They still have a
okay.
lot of improvements that they need to make to it. It's a good start. I'll give them that. I don't use it much yet, right? But I'm hopeful that they get better and better at it.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense, and I don't begrudge them. Everyone
No, no,
should
not
pick.
at all. It's an
Yeah.
it's an early adoption. It's not a bad tool. It's
Mm,
just I'm not getting the value out of it that I'm looking for yet, right?
mm.
Eventually, I will.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right. Well, goes back to what we're talking about here. Continuous performance tracking, predictive variance alerts, where your systems that you build. Roy, we're just talking about how many organizations are investing hugely in AI technologies and frameworks because they know that it's the way forward. Automated corrective action suggestions. You're not going to get all of these awesome bells and whistles if you don't have good data.
Yep.
KPI anomaly detection, AI can help you with that. If your KPIs have so much variation, they're not adding up. AI, I'm talking about millions and millions of data points. AI can very quickly sum up, hey, this doesn't make sense. This is not adding up,
Mhm.
right? So we go from just using lagging indicators, and there's nothing wrong in lagging indicators, but we go to using leading indicators, right,
Exactly.
Roy?
Yep, exactly. You can do it, it would take you typically a long time to do it manually. AI can do it instantaneously.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're in the final one, and then we'll take any final questions. But the final one is closing. Now, this is one that is very front and center of projects. But when
Mhm.
we're thinking in terms of value and more and in an agile mindset, it's not something that we typically focus on.
No,
Is it, Roy? We
no.
we don't
No,
have some
it's
closing.
not very useful in the agile world.
It's not for obvious reasons. The value continues,
Yep.
right? So we talk about DevOps in that world, and it just takes away the need to be thinking of closing.
Yep.
But in terms of closing in a PMBOK focused environment, continuous performance tracking is important. Don't just look at the end result. Try to understand why you got the results you got. Predictive variance alerts could also be helpful. Um, Actually, I think I'm repeating what I just did here. Excuse me. This is this is going to be replaced. Let me replace
Yep, yep,
this.
yep.
Okay. So there are some similarities, but we're going to go beyond the
Mhm.
tracking and metrics to more lessons learned extraction,
Yep.
knowledge base updates, benefits realization validation, which it hardly happens, to be honest. We're so focused on getting to the end goal, and the end goal is completing the project on time, on budget. It's sad to say, but we should go beyond that to thinking about, are the benefits realized?
Yeah.
We can then benchmark for future projects, and we shift from administrative closure to organizational learning. This is something the PMI has always advocated, this piece,
Mhm.
organizational learning. But in a lot of the firms that I have trained in, I find the whole lessons learned retrospective pretty much being non existent,
Yep. And
which is sad.
Phil, as you know, the lessons learned sessions, it's one of my pet peeves in the traditional. It is I would even say it's kind of a joke, right? It's an industry
Mm,
joke because
yeah.
anytime I talk about this, people politely smile and a little giggle as like, yeah, yeah, we do this. We go through this expensive process of collecting our lessons learned, very expensive meetings, write them down on
Mm,
in a Word document, put it up on SharePoint, and we just never reference it ever again.
never.
Now, here's something that may be promising. Well, now, with the advent of AI, what if we had our project repository? Let's just say it's up in SharePoint or something like that, right? Someplace where it's easily accessible by an AI like Copilot. And we take all of those lessons learned sessions and we put them up on SharePoint. Well, now when we're starting a new project, I can reference my AI and say, hey, go look through all of our lessons learned sessions for projects that were similar to this with these kinds of constraints and these kinds of things we're doing and summarize what we might want to look out for, what things we could avoid, define the risks that we're
Mm.
seeing. So it could come back in seconds after reviewing all of the lessons learned across all the projects that are similar to the one that we're about to embark on and say, okay, here's some things that we learned from previous projects.
Wow. That would be invaluable if someone has built that, Roy.
Yeah, well, it's easy to build too. That's the cool
It's
part.
easy. That's true.
It's easy.
Because can Copilot like go through SharePoint and
It can
find?
natively access SharePoint with all of the restrictions and governance already in place in SharePoint.
Wow.
If you don't have access to things, it maintains that. So it's built in. All you got to
Wow.
do is set it up properly and start using it.
That is just mind blowing. And honestly, I'm sure a lot of people listening, we just ignited a spark where they're going to go back and look into their SharePoint repositories. And, lessons learned. The bad thing about it, like you said, Roy, is it could have been done a lot quicker, a lot sooner, a lot all through the project, which will add even more value. Like we take that from the world of agile, retrospectives over lesson learned,
Mhm.
just find out and pivot quickly
Yep.
every sprint as opposed to. So Roy, based on your experience in the real world of agility, are people still okay with time boxes and iterations, or are they
Yeah,
moving away?
absolutely.
They're okay with it.
They're still okay with it, and there's still a lot of people that feel very comfortable with the time boxing and, things like Scrum, the frameworks,
Hmm.
things like that, and that's and
Yeah.
that's great, right? I'm not saying get rid of those, but you also are starting to see a shift in continuous approaches like Kanban, where
Mm.
now organizations are thinking, The Scrum thing is really good, and it's really helped us learn, and it's changed some thinking and the way we do things. But you know what? It's a little restrictive for where we are today, and maybe we need to open it up a little bit. And they start shifting more toward continuous value approaches. So it's changing, right? And I find that to be a very positive thing. The world is maturing. We're evolving into new ways of doing things. So I think we're moving away from some of those time boxing techniques.
Lovely stuff. Well, thank you, Roy, for all of your insights, and thanks to all of our viewers who have come through. Those of you on Instagram, those of you on YouTube, thank you very much for joining. If you've got any questions, now would be a great time because we want to take any final questions you might have. Questions, comments, concerns? I don't see any. Well, I'm just going to say from me, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you, those of you who are going to be jumping on the wagon and joining us on the 3rd of January. Take action right now because what you're seeing is a temporary placeholder price, which is in existence right now, but it will be going away soon. Now's the time to take action. Just to remind you where to go to programleadershipinstitute.com and go through all of the details. If you got any questions about it, you can always send an email to info@praision.com. If you would like additional discussion, you got the phone number there. Let us know how to contact you. Even over the weekends, feel free to do that. Reach out. We really, really want your company on this event, majorly because we know it doesn't happen very often. Roy, we don't do these programs very often. So when we do, I ask people to jump on. We did one last week, last year, or earlier this year, the Agile Core Navigator. And we had a lot of people who were smart and jumped on. Well, we're not having Agile Core Navigator this year. So this is the program we've designed for our people because we know that what you get from a lot of these other certifications is great, but it doesn't bring it all together like this
Mhm.
does. Roy, any final words for our friends?
Yeah, just I hope to see everybody there. It's going to be a fun program. You're going to get this kind of interaction where we're discussing, sharing stories, sharing our failures, sharing our successes. Helping you find signals, and basically, we don't want to help you just find your next job. We want you to help you find the next several jobs, right?
Mm,
Help you with your career, give you a path that maybe you haven't thought about in the past. Maybe open up your horizons a little bit.
absolutely. Well, thank you all very much. See you next year. All the very best in your endeavors. Happy holidays. Be safe. See you soon.